Hey, appreciate you guys tuning in. The Tastemakers podcast begins in 5 minutes. Make sure not to go nowhere, because Quote, Brina, Trisha, and Corey, also known as the Tastemakers, will be with you in 5 minutes. Thanks for sticking with us. Oh snap, you still here. Listen, in less than 3 minutes, the Tastemakers pod will be on and popping. Don't miss Bree, Quote, Trish, and Corey talking about the hottest topics in culture. Again, less than 3 minutes. Make sure to stick with us. I told y'all, patience is a virtue. This is what perseverance will get you. In just 60 seconds, you will be live with the Tastemakers pod. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why y'all waiting to talk?
Well, what it is like I told you, I could not see what y'all could see. Y'all could see the countdown. I couldn't, right? So I'm actually looking at the live joint, and that's how I did it. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging with us, no doubt. Welcome to the Tastemakers Pod. Of course, that is T-Bells. That's your man. C. Goss. Below me right there is Brina. They call me, quote, we are the Tastemakers when we give you a taste of the culture, just a little taste, just a little something, so that you know exactly what's going on out here and what is going out here. For one is, how are you guys? Like, how was your week? How are you guys doing?
Busy.
Yeah,
Super busy.
yeah, busy.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I echo that. Yeah, same.
My week was amazing. You understand me?
I feel like the dog ate your homework, Trish.
What? It ain't that bad.
Why is your week so amazing, Goss?
Bruh, I feel like I've been taking care of me and focusing on me this week, and that's just been refreshing and amazing. And I just got some good offers this week about some stuff I want to do. So that's landing good. You know what I mean? Got some extra bread. So that's always good when you get extra money. Got a raise at work. You feel me? We got the Christmas party coming up. You heard? You know what I mean?
Black man, I see you.
I ain't talked to Shorty in like 4 weeks, so I'm good. I feel like I'm shaking that off.
That detox.
Listen. Good.
Everybody in the chat, make sure to let us know that you're here. Make sure to go ahead and let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from. Of course, you got to like right here again to the Tastemakers Pod. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And while you're doing that, hey, if you're really feeling it, go ahead and share what's popping off here if you think more people enjoy what we do. But either way, we thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bree, how about you? You said just busy as well?
Yep, just busy. Just wrapping up some year-end stuff at work and trying to get ready for the holidays.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the holidays is coming.
I'm ready.
Coming in hot.
Yeah.
But I'm never ready though. Is anybody ever really ready? Are y'all? I mean, I'm never ready.
Never.
No.
It don't feel like Christmas until like the week of Christmas. That's the only week it feels like Christmas to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I got my sights on Vegas, so I'm getting ready for Vegas. I'm skipping over Christmas.
Cool. Shout out to my man DJ Jesus Beats, representing South Carolina. What's going on, Beats? Appreciate you being able to join in with us. No doubt. But yeah, like I said, if you are here with us, I see a couple of people. Definitely make sure to say what's popping to us. We like to say hi back to you, you know what I mean? And see what's going on. But this is it, y'all. This is what, 6 months in the making, pretty much. We waited until the podcast was over, and we figured it was now time to go ahead and talk about the rise and the fall of Marshill. No doubt, Christianity Today did a really good audio documentary on this, and so much information has come out, and I think they did a real good job. How did you guys overall like the podcast or the experience, or how Christianity Today did it? How did y'all like that overall?
Yo, so I felt like my man Mike Cosper, he was the writer, editor, producer of the whole joint. When I first got it, like Wags sent it to me. Wags is my pastor. This was mad long ago when he sent it to me. And I was familiar with Driscoll, and but I was familiar with Driscoll from a positive standpoint. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he was a little controversial. I'm a little controversial, so I was like, I love that. You feel me? But I wasn't really in tune with everything that was happening and going on. Feel me? But when I first got it, I was like, oh, this should be dope, because I had heard about Marshill, and then I heard about it when it closed, and in between, I had heard some stuff here and there, but I didn't know the scope of everything that was going on with it until I heard like the whole podcast joint. So I'm over here, mouth open, jaw like, yo, he did what? What did he say? What's going on? Like, I feel like every other episode, I'm getting new revelations, and then I'm piecing stuff together about people I know who are connected to him, and I'm like, oh, that's why that's why he did. Oh, that's why that happened. Okay, so I think the journalism was super dope on it. Like that junk could have been a Netflix documentary, bruh. That junk could have been straight Netflix.
It really could.
I was on the hills, or I was on the trying to like on the edge of my seat every Tuesday, waiting for the next joint to drop. You know what I mean? And then it got too crazy, so they had to drop it every 2 weeks after that. You know what I'm saying? Because it was wild, bro. But yeah, man.
So literally, and shouts out to Chandra. Appreciate you joining us in the chat as well. Literally, they start.
Look, Sean, that's my homie.
They start putting out episodes, and as they're putting out episodes, more people start coming forth with their stories. So then they start trying to slow up production so they can get in more research to therefore put out a better product. As some crazy real-time type, investigation and journalism going right there. But yeah, so yeah, Goss talked about how he thought Christianity Today did it. What about you, Bree? How did you think that? How do you think they presented it?
I thought it was presented very well. It was very well produced, and I loved the way. The method of storytelling that they chose. Like it was almost kind of like NPR just a little bit, but it was like, the style was really good. Having the firsthand accounts was really good. Instead of just, well, this person said this, it wasn't any hearsay. They really brought people in to tell their story. So that was nice too, but it was very riveting. And it was a lot of information thrown at us. So a lot.
Yeah. Shouts out to Shakia. Love the long form journalism. I'm right there with you. I enjoy it as well. I really enjoy it as well. Trish. How did you think they presented it?
Trish, no. So I definitely want to hear Trish's opinion.
Wow.
Like Trish was in the group.
I told you the dog probably ate Trisha's homework, but we'll see.
Those were like Trish's cousins, I feel like.
Nah.
I mean, not cousins, but like Acts 29 and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, no, we were deep in Acts 29, and Driscoll was very close to my pastor at the time, Pastor E. So there's some things that, of course, we knew was going on behind the scenes, but we didn't know all of that.
Mace and Driscoll were close?
I mean, they were cool. Like, yeah, they had a relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Snap.
But when stuff started getting weird, he definitely pulled back. And they're no longer a part of Acts 29. Our church is no longer a part of Acts 29, unit or whatever. So I'm saying our church. I don't go there anymore, but because we moved. But anyway, yeah. So I felt like it was so beautifully done. Excellent. I mean, the storytelling is what was so riveting for me, because I don't even like listening to podcasts like that. It just depends on the type of, like the long form journalism, right? That I do enjoy. Like Quest loves, I forget the name of his podcast, but his podcast is amazing. Like I can listen to that, like just sit and listen to all the episodes. So it was very similar in terms of the way that the story was being told. I really, really loved it. I'm glad it got my attention. It was, just even in the controversial points, I'm like, it was just like, it's juicy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. Shouts out to my man Charles Brown. Appreciate you hanging with me, hanging with us out here. So listen, again, I see everybody in the chats and everything like that. Thank you guys for joining us. We want you guys to be a part of this conversation. So we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. Make sure to like and subscribe. Again, go ahead and share this out to your socials. Let people know what we got going on here, right here, the Tastemakers Pod. So listen, me personally, I love a good podcast. I love audio art. I love that. So it was right up my alley. It's the kind of thing that I'll gobble down in 48 hours, 72 hours. That's just kind of how I process this stuff. So I enjoyed binging it and hated waiting for that last episode to drop. But yeah, I was I think they did a wonderful job in what they did. I really enjoyed the music element. From the intro song to even how they would change up the songs at the end to match up to certain topics and different things of that nature. I enjoyed that element of it as well. So that was really kind of cool to me as well.
Can I say something real quick? I thought it was interesting that.
Can she say something real quick?
Can y'all hear me?
Yo, Beyonce's internet says that you can't say anything right now. I'm messing with you. Go ahead and try that one more time.
Dang.
Before Corey start booing you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
You good.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because it was looking weird. I was like, what's happening? Anyway, it was interesting that King's Kaleidoscope did the music in the beginning of most of the shows, knowing that they came from Marshill.
Yeah.
Knowing they came from Marshill. I remember when they first dropped it. Yeah, I remember when they first dropped their first album. I remember everybody was on it. And we were like, oh, this came from Marshill. This is like Marshill's like worship people. It was like, this song is amazing. Wow. So yeah, I shout out to them. We know some people who are in there who play for them, and they're just dope. I love them. Anyway.
Gotcha. So again, we don't know if the listeners really got a chance to really right? Charles, you with the megalomania, with the big words, with the big syllables, you know what I mean? With the multiple syllable words there. Thank you. Yeah. And when you get that Google, go ahead and hit us back in the chat and let us know exactly the definition there. We appreciate that. Thank you. But listen. So what we did, we figured we could do a whole episode on this. This is going to touch so many things. But what we did is we decided as tastemakers, we would go ahead and present each other with several questions coming from it. I don't know that we necessarily really want to spoil anything for the listeners, just in case you guys didn't get a chance to check it out or whatnot. Maybe you're wondering exactly.
We spoiled everything.
Okay, all right.
They know why we're here.
So basically, Mark was wilding, right?
See, but I don't think he was wilding. I don't think.
Okay, let's talk about it. You don't think?
Wait a minute now.
No.
Wait a minute.
I really
Let's talk about it. Cause
I told y'all last week. I know a mini Mark Driscolls. Let's go. Why you don't think he was wilding, Goss? Oh, actually, before you get into that, I always got to think Shakia or Shakaya. It's Shakaya, right? Shakia. So look, megalomania, obsession with the exercise of power, especially in the domination of others.
Got a domination.
Woo! Man.
Yeah.
Woo! That's a tough definition right there. That's Charles dropping the SAT words. But yes. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. But you were saying, Goss, why you don't think Driscoll? Yeah. I mean, and that's the key word. That's the word of the day. That's the word of the week right there. Is narcissism. That's the word of the week.
That's like the perfect definition or
that
word.
Is the word of the week.
Right.
And then the word after that is going to be Charles's word, the megalomania. But yeah, definitely narcissism. So why don't you think Mark was tripping, Goss?
So when I think of somebody wilding, I think of somebody that knows right and they're still doing wrong because they're wilding out. They're doing what they know is wrong. And they're like, I know this is wrong, but I'm still doing it, right? Like wilding out is when you have like the church person that goes crazy and they're wilding out, right? Or like, when people have moments and they just want to go crazy. They don't care who they represent. They don't care who they are in that moment. And you have a wild moment. That's how we define wilding out. So when we say, was Mark Driscoll wilding, I would say no, simply because he doesn't think what he was doing was wrong. He thinks what he was doing was based off scripture. He thinks what he was doing was, led by God. He says he heard from God from everything that he was saying as far as that. And I'm not saying that he was right, in my opinion. But I'm saying I don't think he was wilding simply because his convictions were different from ours. So listening to the podcast, listening to the things that he's taught, and how he was, we'll take one of his instances about his views towards women, and his views towards is it egalitarianism? I think it's it's the other one, complementarianism. Yeah, complementarianism. Where when he reads scripture, he sees that the man is the head of the house, or the headship, right, and that the woman submits, and that it's and that's how it goes. So he, through that filter, that's how he kind of made his life, and that's kind of how he built his church, and that's how he trained his men, and that's how he did a lot of things based on what he believed to be true. So I think that it's based on our experiences with how we are introduced to certain topics and how we go about doing those things. So people probably think I'm wilding out when I do stuff, right? People probably think that I'm doing crazy stuff, but I'm doing stuff that I feel like I am hearing from God, and he wants me to do this. People thought Lecrae was wilding out. They're like, oh no, Lecrae's not saved. Like, there could be a rise and fall of Lecrae if he wanted to. There could be a rise and fall of anybody, right? But we chose to do it on Marshill and Mark Driscoll because there were a significant amount of people that were hurt by him, and that one of the reasons I was talking to my pastor about, they're saying that this was cool because he was unrepentant of clear sins that he committed, and he's still doing them today. So going back to, do I think he was wilding out? Yes, I do, but I could see why he doesn't think that he was wilding out.
Okay. So I appreciate that point. And I kind of see what you're saying, right? Now, again, I'll go ahead and say, again, I know many Mark Driscolls. So I know a many narcissistic pastors. You know what I mean? I definitely can say, you might not say he was wilding out, but you would definitely say that the element of pride was heavy, right?
I would say from how it was reported, yes. But also a caveat to that is, I felt like at some point in the podcast, it was like you could tell this guy didn't like Mark.
That there was a bias.
Like this, yeah. Right. Like they would definitely tell it was biased. Because I'm thinking about it from like, yo, there could legit be 40 people who don't like me right now, and they could go report about me, and they could say all these true things about me, but that's 40 out of 40,000 that like me and can make a podcast about how I changed their life. So you could hear the bias in the reports from Cosper and from different people that were reporting on it who he did hurt.
I would definitely say you can hear a bias, and I always check for this, right? I don't know if I remember anybody in the whole podcast who was offended or was hurt ever really point out where they might have played a role in their offense or hurt at all. And that always concerns me, right? Because I'm like, hey, I might have got offended here, but maybe I did this, or maybe I saw this, or whatever the case may be. Now, personally, I think Driscoll was a narcissist. I think pride goes before a fall. I think, and somebody in the chat put it, what about when the elders confronted him? You know what I'm saying? What about when other leaders confronted him with things? And the way that he responded when people challenged him, or when he thought there was a sense of,
he was firing everybody.
When he thought there was a sense of
fired.
Right. When he thought that anybody was saying anything possibly contrary to what he was saying, he was firing them. That's crazy. You know what I mean?
Wild.
That's wild.
Yeah, wild.
You know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be. So unfortunately, that pride and that narcissism and that only you hear from God, you know what I mean? You don't submit to anybody. That's the kind of thing that gets cats in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Am I going to tell you that I believe Marshill? I am one who would say I believe Marshill as a whole did more good than bad. Yes. But obviously people were hurt. and there has never seemed to be any resolution given to those people from Driscoll, is what it seemed like.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Whew. Yeah, I so much. That pride thing is a beast. And I think that's, of course, I like what Shakia said, control and manipulation will have you trying to hold yourself accountable for the abuser's depravity. Because I'm like, I don't know that the people actually did anything. And I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm not saying that they didn't, but it didn't seem like there was something, like very abrasive or something crazy that they did to him to receive the type of, actions and behavior that they were receiving from him. Especially, I'm thinking about the, not the assistant, but the woman who was writing for TGC, who was also the executive assistant.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, I don't know that. And then most of the people that got hurt, it seemed like they weren't hurt necessarily by the personal interaction as much as maybe by the culture and things that were maybe coming over the pulpit, right? Like, I don't know that most people were hurt by personal interaction the way that she was. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, so that kind of thought is, I want to get into these questions before I get into a resolution of my thought and different things of that nature. But yes, the ecosystem supporting this kind of stuff is a real issue. It is. It is an issue. You know what I mean? But again, when the elders came to confront, when you start getting rid of people who are not your yes men, if you can't be a yes man, then you got to go. Then there's sure enough a problem, ahead. If not, where there's smoke, there's fire, pretty much. So that's definitely there. Let's talk about these questions. Bree, did you get a chance to get some questions really at all?
I did, and okay. I think one of the first things I noticed, just from hearing the whole story, is how I think in one of the episodes, when Mark was discussing how I guess his call to ministry, and that he had never been a member of a church prior.
First of all, that sounded so familiar to me. I was like, "Whoa,
yo!" That blew my mind. Like, how you gonna lead and you ain't ever follow?
Yo,
it was.
I heard her.
Where they do that at?
Many people do that.
Yeah.
Many people do. Many pastors. I know one in particular that is no longer a pastor, but that is the problem. That right there. Listen, I would. Yep. I'm gonna just.
Yeah. I don't. Leading without first following blows my mind. The fact that he had never really had a church membership until. Talk about a red flag. That's a red flag.
Huge red flag.
That's a huge red flag right there. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's impossible. And that the Lord, right. I mean, there was, as I understand it, there was only one person that was, that was impregnated by the Holy Spirit. So it's not like things can't happen, right? But it is definitely a red flag. It's definitely a proceed with caution. You know what I mean?
Are we saying that only for church leadership though? Because somebody's got to lay the blueprint. Somebody's got to go across the bridge and just like Jay-Z said one time, find out there's Indians across the bridge and they get shot up. And then you go back into and like everybody else, so there's Indians over there. Like somebody has to be the innovator. Somebody has to be the visionary. So it's like
for sure.
So are we talking about you only have to lead or follow somebody when we're like talking about church stuff, or we're saying for everything?
Nah.
No.
I think that's across the board.
I think it's just like, it's like I go back to 1 Timothy 3 when it talks about qualification. One of the qualifications for leadership in ministry is that you can't be a novice. And I think it says something to the effect of, if you leave yourself open to falling to pride. It feels like that's exactly what happened in this case, because he went on a rampage, and I'm just kind of like, that's probably why, because he's missing all of that training and discipleship that should precede you going out and then making other disciples.
Man, I'm not even gonna hold you, yo. I'm not even gonna hold you. Every position that I've held in church, like, was given to me. Like, I was like, I've never had to follow for real.
No, but
no. But were you a new Christian though? Is the question?
You were not. You've been in church. You've been in church your whole life.
That's different.
So you got to see levels of church order and things that were going on, especially at the church in which you were. It doesn't mean that you didn't carve your own path, but you.
No. I'm saying, are y'all saying that Mark was saying that he's never even was a member or been to a church? All of a sudden, he just started one.
He said he was never a member of a church.
Yep.
I'm sure he's been to church.
A whole different conversation. That's
sure
crazy.
He's been to church, though.
He said he had been to a few, and what he saw he didn't like, so he started his own.
Right.
Got you. But I'm saying that same principle I've done with a lot of stuff and have been successful with it. That's why I asked, we're talking about in church context as far as leading in a church or leading other people? Or are we talking about the principle itself?
I'm talking about the principle itself, though, myself.
Oh, so that's two different things.
I've been in corporate America where, and I think most of us could kind of maybe identify with this. I've been in corporate America where a middle manager is hired from the outside and everybody else is looking like, what? Like, this person doesn't know our company. They don't know how we do things. They don't even know how to do the job in which they are supervising. And now they are leading just because they have these certain personality traits or whatever the case may be. Or because they passed this interview or whatever the case may be. I don't think that's...
When I was back in Norfolk and I got licensed to be a minister or whatnot, everybody else had to go through training. I got a phone call from the head dude. Like, yo, listen, I want to ordain you. Be at church on Sunday. All right.
See, I cannot with that type of...
So again, I still feel like, Goss, you saw enough church even before that point.
Yes, I did.
You
but
saw
did I feel like I was qualified? No.
No, I know people that's going through training that don't feel like they're qualified.
No, like everybody else who got like licensed and ordained that day had been through like classes, had been through like stuff. And like, I'm like, oh, for real? Y'all did all that? That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't see it as being the same as Driscoll going from never being a member of a church to now leading.
Being a whole pastor.
Being a whole pastor.
You're a shepherd. You ain't
and again,
never been shepherded.
I'm not saying that that's impossible. I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm not saying nothing like that. I'm saying it's a red flag. I'd be cautious. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying there. Let's see here. Ms. Danielson put, can we talk about how many CHH artists have a very similar mindset? Can we talk about how many CHH cats was in this whole doctrinal situation? But anyway, I'm sorry. You were about to say, Trish? You see how I hit that and got off it real quick?
No, I was I'm going to shut my mouth. It's a lot of stuff I'm going to have to shut my mouth on. But
nah, you got to talk tonight. You talking tonight. Because you got all the info we need. Let's make these ratings go up. Let's make these ratings go up.
I am submitting myself to the Holy Spirit. And I am not gossiping about nothing. I'm just saying, like, there are many CHH artists. I think when my husband, like when I met him and, you know, he was kind of talking, Trish talk, that's so funny. And, you know, it was a lot of artists at the time that were just like, they wanted the platform, you know what I'm saying? And even thought that they were like pastors in a sense because they had the platform to talk. You know, I think rappers think that they, you know, because of the way that they, you know, position themselves in what they're saying in their lyrics, made them feel like they had a a pastoral place, which they
is
did
funny.
not.
No, they didn't. And then as soon as something goes down, and the first thing they want to say is, "Well, I ain't your pastor. I ain't your pastor."
Thanks. But it's like, wait. That ain't what you was talking about when you was on the mic, thinking that you was running stuff, right? Not too different from P4CM, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, P4CM ended very tragically because, again, the pastor couldn't. First of all, I don't know who trained him, but he had no self-control. Okay, you out here doing, and that, again, I be knowing too much, but he was doing the most and got caught, and it was a wrap. So it's just like, I mean, not to say that none of us can't be in that position, right? But what I am saying is, if you take on a pastoral role, you have to, you gotta, like, you're talking about self-control. You're talking about just killing your pride, killing your flesh, like all of these things that
qualifications of an elder.
You gotta, like,
the qualifications of an elder.
All of the qualifications of an elder has to come in place. And it's not about faking the fun, because everybody struggle, right? If you're struggling, say something. Don't be hiding it, doing your dirt, you know what I'm saying? And then expect, people to keep following you. Like, that's not cool. That's like, if we have to find out about your dirt because you didn't tell us about it, that's problematic.
But we don't give opportunities, though. I was telling my therapist
Nah.
What's going on,
Nah, Trish.
Hold on. Go ahead. We don't give opportunities. I didn't feel like this was that, but go ahead.
Nah, yo, Trish, what you're saying is true, but nobody's ever going to do that. And nobody's ever going to say, yo, this is what it is. This is what's happening. Because 1, you're going to lose your whole congregation. 2, you might lose your job. 3, you're going to lose your credibility. But if we want to always use the joint, but I'm human, just like y'all, whatever, like that, as real and as true as that is, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody cares. Because to them, you're a form of Jesus to them, which I get, because you're the pastor or you're the person in leadership, but they X out all your humanity. You can't be human no more. And I'm saying that's why it's
that's
not
the
safe.
problem.
It's not safe to be a pastor, bro. I wouldn't advise it for nobody.
Shouts out to Birch, long time dude. Good to see you, man. Listen, that's the problem right here.
It ain't safe.
That's the problem with this whole situation right here, right?
I missed what y'all said because my internet's tripping. What y'all saying? I'm like, what's happening tonight?
No. But that's the problem with the whole situation, right? Is when we put these expectations and we start putting these people on pedestals. Yeah. This is when things start to get real dicey and real messy.
Bro. It's not.
It's not about a pedestal. Okay, talk to me.
Nah, it's not even about, like, how you see your pastor is different than putting him on a pedestal. Because although, like I said, there's no room for your pastor to be human, or for your leader to be human, or for your parents to be human. And it's natural because they're the people in charge of your souls. Everywhere.
My bad.
That's why.
You're right, but I'm saying there are places.
So let me give you an example.
There are places where it is.
The only person we don't care.
I've experienced it. You can't tell me that it don't exist because I've experienced it.
I'm sorry. You're right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
But the only person I can think of that we don't care, but the only person that we don't like, that we feel is really human and who's on like a high level, I feel like it's Kirk Franklin. Like, he's the only one that can do anything.
Like,
but listen,
he cussed his son out. We didn't care.
It's because Kirk has always told you the thing that every pastor should be telling you, which is, look, I am no different than you. Yes. I am just leading this thing.
Yes.
All right? I'm just leading this thing. I got issues like you got issues.
No, pastors say that all the time.
If pastors say that all the time. But some do, some don't.
No. He was specific though. He was specific with his issues and stuff. When he said, "I struggle with porn," like, that's specific.
From the
and nobody expected him to talk about that. Nobody expected him to talk about that. That is why, literally, that is really why we didn't care when Kirk cussed his son out, because he's always kept it 1,000 with us. Always. He put it out there like, yo, I struggle with this. I still struggle with this. And this is what I'm struggling with, 10 years after. He's saying, yo, I struggle with it. Like, man.
That's why I said. And that's why I said he's the only one. He's the only one that can do that.
I agree. I think pastors have to be, okay, this is what I wanted to say. The church in general, you're right. I agree with you to an extent about there isn't a place for them, because I do feel like there isn't a safe space a lot of times for leaders and pastors. Maybe pastors have like certain men around them that they can feel like they can be real with, but that's very rare, right? So I do feel like the church does have to have more of that safe space and open the conversation up. Like, a lot of times the church isn't even talking about a lot of the things. Like, and I will take it back to Driscoll. And this is one thing I will say I appreciate about Driscoll. And it's like I have mixed feelings, because some of it he did, I feel like he did well, and then he just completely failed.
Of course.
So many other
places, but Driscoll's not all bad, and I don't think anybody should ever try to put that on him. Go ahead, you were saying?
Oh yeah. It's not all bad, but
yeah.
It's just but the open conversation about sex and in your marriage and even him coming at like the brothers, like, yo, you keep putting your hands on your girlfriend, like stuff like that. Like, what's that type of conversation? I feel like doesn't happen a lot in churches. So that part about him, even back then, I think that's why we liked him so much, because he was so, brave to say stuff that most people just wasn't saying in the church, coming from the pulpit specifically.
Yeah. No, I thought that was dope that he was willing to try to hold young men accountable and push them to a higher standard. But it was obvious that some of that did get a little bit toxic, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be at certain levels. And so a lot of this has to do with balance too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just, an unjust weight is abomination to the Lord. Some of this just has to do with good old fashioned balance as well. Man. So that was off of one question there. Goss,
right.
What question you got on the docket?
So let me see what I got.
Oh, hold on. Before you say that, before you go into that, and I know Charles is dropping bars in the joint, because that's what my dude do. So I know he's dropping bars on
Man, forget
in the
Charles.
chat. But but listen, the other point I wanted to quickly look at and address here is and I totally forgot that joint just that quick. That sucks.
Ask my question, bro.
Go for your question, dude.
All right, boom. So I was in a conversation with my man Wags, who's my pastor, and I told him,
which is the joint. Let me get it before I forget. My bad. Listen. So, this is what's strange for me, hearing it coming from you being at a majority culture church. You are at a white church. I'm at a white church right now. And had I only been at Black churches my whole life, I might be able to see things this way. But the white church that I'm at right now, they just don't treat the pastor any different than anybody else. You know what I'm saying? I know we in the Black church, we do that a little bit more than I think they do a lot of times. Now, of course, I mean, that's what I said is not, we're not a monolith, and white people ain't a monolith. And so I'm not saying 100 one way or the other, but the church I'm at right now, like, don't nobody treat my pastor any different than whatever. And of course, for me, I come from from Black church, so I'm like, dang, y'all should probably respect that dude a little bit more, or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? So, but you're saying that's not your experience at your thing.
This wouldn't even be a thing if Driscoll was at a Black church. He would be 10 times worse. He'd
be 10 times worse at a Black church.
This wouldn't even.
I believe wholeheartedly.
This would not be a thing. There are Black Driscolls right now who probably agree with him. Like, he
there are Black and white Driscolls, but yes, there are plenty of narcissistic.
I wanted to talk about that too, though, as far as culture-wise, and I think, but that's going to be later on. But I wanted to bring up, as far as, does this vary from culture as far as the response that we're hearing? And I believe 82% of it does. I believe that a lot of it is sensitive white people, as well as white people that don't want to take any BS. Black people take a lot of BS in the name of church. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In the name of the man of God.
Right.
So that's why I do feel like, yo, this is like white people like revolting. We're not gonna take it. We're gonna make a podcast about you.
Yeah, some of that is very. I think there's definitely a part of that has a lot of truth to it, Goss.
It's a fact. I'm listening to the podcast like, what? My pastor did that. Nobody flinched. Nobody
flinched, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
but that doesn't make it right, though.
And I'm not saying it's right, but we also have to. Okay, let's be realistic on our expectations. We all know within the last decade, things have changed from a politically correct standpoint. Okay, within the last 10 years, just things are different. So there's things that we did in the 80s and things that we did in the 90s and things that we did in the 2000s that once 2010 hit, you couldn't do those things anymore. You know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be. So I think that has to be applied to this as well. As some of these stories are being told, I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, it was 2006 when that popped off. It was a different world. You know what I mean? It was a different, you could say different things and do different things than you can now.
Yeah.
So that's a factor as well. You got a question, Goss?
So my question was, as I'm talking to my pastor about the podcast, and as I feel like it's more becoming gossip than it is journalism, and it's more becoming making the church look bad than it is just let's expose this guy.
Go for it.
My question becomes, does unrepentant behavior need to be exposed? Like, because he hasn't repented, because he thinks he hasn't done anything wrong, is this the best way to tell the world everything that went on? Or do we just let it go and let God judge it?
Well, I think it
depends. Go ahead.
My pastor was all for it. He said, yes.
Matthew 18? You talking about Matthew 18?
What is Matthew that deals with if you have an ought against your brother?
Matthew 18.
You know, Matthew 18, thank you. So you go to, so I mean, and this is, you know, people just don't want to follow scripture sometimes, which is just, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? Scripture particularly says, look, man, if you got an ought against your brother, you go to your brother. If you can't resolve it there, you bring in other cats, right? If y'all can't resolve it there, you bring in the pastor or the elders, boom, boom, boom. And if you can't resolve it there, you dust your hands out, consider, you know, whatever the case may be. Exactly. Yeah. But the scripture says, doing this process, a lot of times you see it, you can actually gain a brother. Like if you think of some of your relationships, and I know if I think of some of mine, some of my deepest relationships started in conflict or when we brushed up against each other. And then now we, you know, we have that understanding, whatever the case may be. It's the gossip and different things of that nature that can cause that issue. So here's my thing with this, though. I think there was definitely a part with people tried to confront him about stuff. And Driscoll just won't having it at the end of the day. You know what I mean? He just won't having it. He won't having it. If you were not a yes man, you had to go. And so that's kind of how I see that. I believe that's the way that we need to trust the word on this one. You know what I mean? And if more people would execute their ought or their issues with people in that way that's explained in Matthew 18, we have more brothers gained, more sisters gained.
I think I definitely feel that. And I think if they didn't talk about the certain people that spoke up, then, you know, who I highly respect, like you had your Paul Tripp's talk about this is the most toxic environment I've ever been a part of. Like, I love Paul Tripp. So if Paul says something's wrong. You know what I'm saying? When Matt Chandler kind of took him out of Acts 29. You know what I'm saying? So like I can respect that from what you're saying, because people like Paul Tripp and the Chandlers and the Darren Patricks and all of them, I feel like they were like, nah, this is not good what's going on. But like but a lot of people don't know those people as far as respectability. Well, some of them do. But as far as, you know, the notability and respectability or credibility, I should say. So all you're listening to is Mike Cosper bash this dude for 2.5 hours. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's why I'm like, all right, Mike. He was.
He was. And I have some of those same thought processes that Goss has. Is this good for the church?
No.
Right? Well,
Right.
no. So
I hear what you're saying.
I come back and
I
I
hear what you're
say,
saying.
I ultimately say, yes, it is good, right? Because the process or the hope is that people will see this and say, okay, this is not the way we do things. This is not the way we behave, and we learn from it. Now, the cynical person in me would say, people would hear this and be like, that's why I don't go to church. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? That's the cynical person in me would say that. But Scripture is very clear about us not forsaking the fellowship of the saints, and iron does sharpen iron. And sometimes when iron is sharpening iron, you might get cut. But then I go back to Matthew 18, and we have to work that out. And that's part of our growth as spiritual beings, as human beings, even as people in Christ. That's how we grow with that conflict and that iron sharpening iron and that comfortability or whatever the case may be. That's how we grow. But if we're always just looking to take offense and then go gossip, or take offense and let it fester, then you're not following the scriptures, and this is where the enemy gets his foothold, right?
Yeah. No, I feel that.
I hear that. I think it's kind of different though, because of his platform, right? He wasn't always accessible. So if you tried to get to him, he may not have been available. You know what I'm saying? So how do you navigate around that? Like, what do you do?
So check this out. How does somebody who's not accessible to you, and maybe I'm not seeing this clearly, or please walk me through this, because I'm sure I'm missing something, but how does somebody who's not accessible to you, so you really don't have any, like the people you have relationship with, those are the folk that can hurt you. You feel me?
For sure.
So how does somebody that's not accessible to you, and to an extent, this is not a blanket statement, but how do they really hurt you that deeply?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think as a pastor, if you're shepherding me, right, and maybe you say something from the pulpit that's offensive to me, you know what I'm saying? I would want to at least have some kind of conversation or address it in some type of way. And maybe they reached out to have those type of conversations. I'm sure there was stuff he said from the pulpit that was offensive to people, right?
I'm sure.
I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But then would that, if something, and maybe, and we're on different levels of Christian maturity, of course, but somebody saying something from the pulpit that you don't have real relationship with, does that, unless they just telling your business from the pulpit, does that hurt you?
Really.
Does that hurt you?
Could. People are super sensitive. People are.
Everybody's different.
I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that's. People have different sensitivity levels. Let me say that. I don't want to say they're super sensitive, but they have different sensitivity.
You don't want to
levels.
call them snowflakes, but I'm messing with you.
Because I mean, I know of a situation where it's something like that happened, and they wrote a letter, but didn't want to have a conversation with the pastor. Because they were offended by something the pastor said.
So they wrote a letter
to him, but when he
didn't want to have a conversation,
the pastor tried to reach out, and they weren't open.
And that's let's call it what it is. That's immaturity, right? Shouts out to my man Charles Brown. He put, they don't have access, they don't have to be accessible to you, but somebody has to be able to get to them again. Right. Who are they accountable to?
Exactly.
And that's the key point. You've got to be accountable to somebody. You know what I mean? But I didn't know this was a thing until I got in the white church as well. Preachers be getting scathing letters from congregants, especially like them old people that have been paying tithe their whole lives or whatever the case may be. Pastors get crazy letters to these people. I mean, from these people about just ripping them. I mean, calling them everything but a child of God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother thing. I can't remember what white pastor it was, but when all the racial stuff was going on, he admitted to T.D. Jakes, he was like, for real, I didn't touch on some of this just because I knew my congregation weren't ready for it, and they was gonna tear me to shreds if I touched on this. You know what I mean?
Wow.
The emails that I be getting when I, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So I just, you know, that's sometimes our immaturity can cause our hurt as well. And we are all people, right? So we're all different. We're not a monolith. We all receive things separately. But if we follow Matthew 18, I believe we can get that resolution and do what needs to be done. But if you write a letter to the pastor and the pastor's trying to reach out to you to bring about a resolution, but yet you don't want to talk on because you're so hurt, that's on you, baby girl. You know what I'm saying? That's on you, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't do nothing for you. Your immaturity is in the way of your healing. And so, or resolution, or whatever the case may be. Listen, I got a quick question real quick. Let me get one of my questions here. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into this real quick. This is my, listen. And I'm going to say this. And I think I said this to my man, Charles Brown, in a text. I don't believe that there is a such thing as church without Churchhurt. I don't believe there's a such thing as church without Churchhurt.
I can agree because there's people involved.
Because it's people.
Right. Yeah. People hurt people.
People hurt people all the time. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. And this happens at your job. When somebody else gets hired over you and you think you own a joint. This happens at your job when you get fired and you put 20 years into working for this daggone company. This happens at your church when you misunderstand, or somebody came at you wrong, or somebody was having a bad day and then they put it on you. But if you don't look to resolve these things, you know what I mean? I believe you have to literally take offense. Like offense be out there and you got to literally grab it and let me take offense and let me put that joint on it. Whatever the case may be. Yeah. I live my life by the grace of God, you know what I mean? The breastplate of righteousness, things that heart. You know, when offense be out there, sometimes I be so above the offense that you could try to offend me and I'll totally miss it by the grace of God. Just because I'm like, oh, was that offense?
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking like that, but my thought process is, oh, that person probably meant this and said that. Let me give them grace. You feel what I'm saying? We take offense for whatever reason.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
So I feel that. I know. I mean, and I'm probably the person that does the offending.
Gotcha.
So I can only tell you, how many people I probably offended. Like just knowing stuff I say, and like I'll say it with no remorse or like a straight face, like not playing at all, and then they'd be like, Corey, that hurt me. I'm like, for real, I'm sorry. I ain't know that hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, offense is definitely a part of church. And it has to be, actually. There's no way around it.
There's no way around it. Again, when iron sharpens iron, sometimes you're going to get cut. And but the thing is, Scripture tells us how to deal with this, but we don't trust Scripture. We don't listen, or either we don't read and we don't know, or we don't put it into application one way or the other. So now we just defend it. You know what I mean? I think it was Tiger in the chat. He said, look, there's no homes that haven't had hurt. In your family, you got hurt. In the home, you know, and the church is no different.
That's
you feel what I'm saying? It's just people. You know what I mean? So my thing is, I want people to be eyes wide open. You need church. You need fellowship. But I ain't gonna hold you like there's gonna be hurt there. There's gonna be offense there, and there's gonna be great hope and great grace and great friendship and great love there too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just have to, you have to get what you're trying to get out of a situation, and there'll be great growth and all that stuff too. But to think that there's not hurt in church is a hospital, yo. And sometimes doctors heal, and sometimes doctors' bedside manner be whack, and they get sued. And sometimes doctors cut in the wrong place, and that's malpractice. You know what I mean? Right. But what doesn't get to talk about is that successful surgery, and the many people who have those successful surgeries, the doctors don't get praised for doing their jobs. You feel what I'm saying? But when they mess up,
I feel like there's a difference though between like, being hurt by the church and being abused by the church, right? Because I think there is a very big difference, right? Because like at the end, you hear the amount of like just how people were affected, how deeply they were affected, right? You're talking about 9 years after this man having a whole panic attack because of, he's thinking about
because of the culture. Yeah.
So it's like, that's real. That's a very real issue.
Yeah, very real. Obviously, a very toxic culture. Go ahead, Trish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, extremely toxic. So I think that part for me was, I feel like that moved me more than anything, because it's like, even when they were in the thick of it, I don't think it didn't really set in until after the church is done. And it's like, wait, what? Like, why am I feeling like this? And I think it was very powerful too with
You're breaking up a little bit, Trish, but you were saying it's very powerful, and I think you're about to say a name. Go ahead. I see you.
Yeah. The dude Sutton, the guy that was pretty much telling everybody you're fired or, giving all the bad news.
Yeah.
The shift that happens with him, after listening to the podcast and, reaching out to people, I think this was really dope. A redemptive move, I think that was, I don't know, it was just another picture of the gospel, even after you hearing all this like crazy stuff for hours and hours and hours. And then you hear this man, repenting to the people he hurt. I was like, well, at least somebody repented to somebody, because what's happening?
Yeah. Have you, I'll ask another question and somebody else can get in. Has anybody ever been passive in a toxic church situation, and you can look back now and say, I maybe should have said something, and maybe I helped to create an atmosphere that was conducive to people being hurt, or to maybe a toxic atmosphere? Has anybody?
This may be a hot take, but
I'd say yes. Go ahead.
It's maybe a hot take, but I think there's a lot of toxic Black churches out there, just simply based off of what we call honor and what we disguise off of, they're trying to do things for the kingdom. And I think pastors do a lot of God Driscoll tendencies, but because Black people, we hold our pastors in different spheres. Esteem, yes, great word. We esteem our pastors differently. I just feel like, they get away with a lot of stuff in the name of church, or in the name of serving, or in the name of honor. So they don't even know that they're in toxic spaces.
That there's toxic situations
until you leave, but you're probably not going to leave that church because it's normal to you. This is what happens at church.
Yeah. So
I feel like that's why a lot. Let me shut up.
Yo, talk, Trish.
A lot of black leaders, especially like women in the Black church, they be mean as jack. You be like, why you so mean?
Yep.
So we got to protect the Black church a little bit here, right?
So
listen. Bree, did you want to get in that before I?
No, I was just gonna say it's just like, yeah, they are mean, and then we'll blame it on the anointing. Like I have a right to just be this domineering. That's just what that made me think of. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
So listen. Let's address the elephant in the room. All right, 400 years, of the nonsense that we've had to go through as Black Americans, and we know, you know what I mean. We were disrespected everywhere. In our jobs, and whatever the case may be out in the world. And so then you would come to church church is it's a very healing place for Black people, because it's a lot of times the place that we can come to and let our hair down, especially if it's a majority Black culture church, right? And so at the same time, if you are a pastor or if you're a leader, an elder, whatever the case may be, you've been disrespected everywhere else as a Black person. The Black church has also been a place where maybe somebody can come and get some power, come and get some dignity, whether righteous or not, whatever the case may be. And therefore, that's where maybe there's been an abuse in the certain levels of esteem.
Ain't no maybe about it.
There ain't no maybe about it. But we've done things to pacify, right, based on our what. And I think we're starting to maybe come around a little bit and being elevated to that stuff. But yeah, we are more susceptible. We are very susceptible to worshiping the pastor, the man of God, which is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's extremely dangerous.
It is
100%.
So so I remember I was in a situation. I started a church with a friend of mine, and dynamic preacher he was, dynamic giftings in general. He just really was, right? But there was that level of, all right, my dude, who are you really going to be accountable to? And are you, even if you say that you're accountable to them, are you really being accountable to them? And different things of that nature. When things go south, are you still going to be accountable to them? And different things of that nature. And honestly, my dude was so talented with the giftings and the anointing that you had a lot of these pastors in the area trying to son him, trying to get him to come under, wanting to be, whatever the case may be, because you want to be the cat that leads this cat, or whatever the case may be. All that to be said, I was in leadership, and I had moved away to Kentucky. I came back in 2016 to VA, and I noticed some of the old members of that church, things would come up, and they had to let me know that they looked at me as being complicit because they thought I knew things that honestly I didn't know. But because I was a leader or because I was next to, they assumed that I did. You know what I mean? So these are just the kind of things that happen in church where people assume certain things or whatever the case may be. And don't get me wrong, I still could have been complicit to some things, very much so, right? But yeah, these are the kind of things that happen. But I came to these people once they told me. I said, hey, look, no, honestly, I did not know that, and I'm sorry that this happened or that happened or whatever the case may be. And that's just that's kind of how it is. How it is.
Yeah, I would say me and my husband probably to some people came off, and maybe we and this was unintentional, like completely unintentional. And I think when people make assumptions and don't get clear or clarity on a thing,
Matthew 18 all over again. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, they take what's like a certain thing that you said and run with that, and then like make it into something totally different, right? And yeah, I could be seeing it different too because of the position that I was in. But me and my husband were like one of the first couples to get married that met and got married at Epiphany, right? The first couple to meet and get married in Epiphany, right?
Gotcha.
So we had a lot. Like there was like one or two other couples that had gotten married prior to us launching, but we were kind of like in the midst of it. So a lot of people were looking at our relationship like, oh, that's how you do it?
It's goals. Y'all became relationship goals.
Right. And so we were very intentional about the way we were dating, you know what I'm saying? And we wanted to be intentional because we wanted it, it was my first Christian relationship ever. So I was like, I'm not following with you. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. We had a whole boundaries list and all this stuff. And this was when Joshua Harris, which I know.
I was about to say his name. Let's go. We got to hit that too. Go for it. Yeah.
So he created a toxic, way of dating. But at the time, we didn't even read I Kissed Dating About. That wasn't even a book that I ever read. Okay. We had read the one, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now.
Choosing God's Best or
No. The other one, when he right before he got married to his wife, they were talking about how they did their relationship, the courtship that they had.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I know the name of that book. Yeah.
Something. So anyway, we were like that book. We were like, taking our P's and Q's from. Okay.
Right.
Because what other examples did we have? We had none. Okay, we had none. So we were just taking P's and Q's. Now we didn't do everything by that book, but there was a lot of things that we did. So we had recommended it. Like we didn't say, "Oh, this is the book you need. You have to go by this book when you're dating. You have to do it." People took what we were saying as though you had to do that. And when it came back to us, we were like, we ain't never say that. We just said, this is how we are doing our relationship. And it's a recommendation, but like everybody's relationship is different. You know what I'm saying? So, but a lot of people blamed me and my husband on like their relationships being toxic. And I was like, wait, hold up. Because we were
crazy.
I think we can take ownership of it, but like we still wasn't aware. We just
choosing God's best.
No, not that one.
Dang,
that's not it.
Okay.
I gotta find it. I gotta find it. But it was, and I don't think we even figured that out until later years after we had already, had laid that foundation and was just really helping couples, live out walk out their relationships. And of course, later on down the line, like it's been helpful for us because we've counseled a lot of couples, we've walked with a lot of couples, we've done premarital and stuff like that. So that's something that we're like, good at, but we didn't know people was,
was watching you like that and taking everything you said that seriously. And that's the danger. You know what I mean? That's kind of what happens. I hate what happened to Joshua Harris.
Oh my God.
That joint hurts my heart. Because he meant the best. You know what I mean? And then for the world of social media to kind of tear him down and your book was toxic and it ruined this for me and whatever. And now my dude, but now my dude ain't even in the faith no more. He's so you know what I mean? Like that
and
hurts
divorce.
my heart. And divorce, right? And then, so I can't put that kind of pressure. I think Tiger said it about that's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? What he did, the book he wrote, as an early 20s, and then 20 years later, 15 years later, for social media to hate that man.
Boy Meets Girl. When Boy Meets Girl, that's what it's called.
Yeah, I'm not even familiar, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in Christian dating books, especially I Kiss Dating Goodbye. I was like, I would like to date. So no, we're not reading that.
I was like, that title just doesn't sound right. I don't know about that.
It's like we're in the mouth. That's what it should be.
I Kiss Dating in I like it. Yo. So as y'all can see here, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's Tastemakers Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to share this out. We appreciate you guys being with us and chatting with us in the joint, from your man Tiger to, of course, my dude Charles, to everybody else that's been up in here. But I think the key thing that we're saying here is, of course, we don't want to just hang on Marshill and Mark Driscoll. We want to see how the church as a whole can be affected by this podcast, what we can learn from, what we can do.
What? Churches right now are switching stuff up after this podcast.
Sure.
And I hope that's a good thing, right?
You better believe that.
That's a good thing. Yep. You know what I mean?
They having meetings. They calling in people.
Maybe it is good for the church in a sense.
In a sense,
it's like
we can grow from it.
Yes, and learn.
But the homie is still preaching. We acting like Mark's not preaching no more. He got a whole church.
He got a whole nother church, right?
He got a whole church. I didn't even know that until recently. I said, wait, he got a whole church.
So hold on.
Big
the
church.
Documentary said he was in Arizona. I thought he was actually in Pennsylvania. No, he's in Arizona.
He's in Arizona.
He's in Arizona. Trinity Church. Big jump.
Trinity Church. He just went right along. I hope. And let's give Mark this grace. Maybe Mark has learned from this situation, and maybe now he has.
They said
because I got people close to the situation who are close to Wags who told me he hasn't.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they did say with some people that had left Trinity But they did say on the podcast that he's not Seattle Mark. He's a different Mark.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that he ain't toxic.
Still a huge narcissist, you know what I mean?
Yeah, narcissist, all that.
And and like I said, holding yourself accountable to others, going to therapy, all that kind of stuff. This is what helps from these tendencies. Like I said, I know a many Mark Driscolls, you know what I mean?
Listen.
And I don't want to minimize anybody's hurt at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's obviously a toxic joint. But I've been in church my whole life. I've seen it. This is, and just a little bit about my testimony. I've been in church my whole life. I've seen church splits. I've seen what was almost a mega church being birthed in my living room. You know what I mean? As a child, looking over the balcony, finding, what's going on. I've seen all this. I've been kicked out of a church that I was raised in. Yeah, listen, man, the pastor called my dad, who was an elder, who was at the church. He had been kicked out first. I still was feeling the Lord was telling me to go to this church, even though I wanted to be out. And the pastor ended up calling my pops, like, look, man, you need to tell your son to go. And, we wouldn't want nothing to happen to him. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been in some nonsense situations myself. By the grace of God, these situations didn't stick to me. They hurt me in the moment, but it never changed my love for Jesus. It never changed my love for people. It never changed the mission. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's because I never put these people on a pedestal. I never put them on a pedestal. But it was maybe easier for me because this same pastor that kicked me out the church 4 or 5 years later, prior, was teaching me how to drive. So I could see your faults and who you were as a human. I never supernaturally made you that person, even though I recognized the gift and the anointing that was on your life. And I think that's just what we have to do. We have to realize that these people are people. Yeah. And that's just it. And you have to kind of give grace for people, and you have to hold people accountable and address people. Again, Matthew 18, man, we got to know how to hold people accountable. We have to know how to sit people down when they do it. We need to know how to restore people in the right time as well. We need to see all of that for the church to be healthy. We need to see all of that. Yeah, that sounds like a Godfather type threat. Yeah, it did. What's crazy now, though, is for real, my peoples and all of us is now cool with that same person. You know what I mean? That same pastor, we're cool with them now. You know what I mean? It's nothing to it. I still salutes, even from a distance, salutes. You know what I mean? Keep it moving. You know what I mean? But cats be straight narcissists out here.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And there's a certain confidence / arrogance / belief in oneself / belief in God that cats do have to have as they're going out to literally plant a church, literally going out to build something that's not there.
Yeah.
On some, if we build it, they will come type stuff.
Yeah.
That does take a lot. And you can get caught up in that thinking that was you and not the move of God. It's so easy to get caught on that. And we, especially as men, we go where we are praised and where we are celebrated. We love that. We love that.
Indeed.
You feel what I'm saying? So all of this stuff has to be checked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis. Like a yearly checkup, like you do your physicals. Actually, like most of y'all probably don't do your physicals, which again is the issue. And that actually was speaking towards me. Who needs to book us physical as soon as possible?
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I think we still got probably about a good another 15, 20 minutes on this topic. Did anybody else just have a question on deck that they wanted to go out, or even in the chat? Any questions or thoughts or whatever the case may be?
Hey, man, we missed a lot of stuff. I mean, of course, we're not going to get to all of it, but I feel like we missed a lot of key stuff that happened in the podcast. When we talking about he was making $600,000 a year. He's talking about they had $20 million when the church closed.
Listen, so I'm gonna be honest with you. The $600,000 a year did not faze me. When you run in a church, that's how many people in the church?
This is how it's broken down to me. The premise of, hey, you're getting $600,000 a year, as if this is a company, as this is a salary because you are CEO of a company.
Gosh,
so the premise
you do get a salary at the church you work at, right?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I don't, but I'm saying the premise of the premise. This how Wags broke it down to me. He said the premise of how people try to justify it off bat is wrong. So
how?
Because I posted it on my Facebook and got some responses from it.
Yeah,
and I showed them one response that said, "Hey, they're bringing in $20 million a year. 2.4% of that is not a lot of money, and that's $600,000." But Wags is like, "Yeah, but you're basing that off of as if you're a company bringing in money, and we're going to pay our employees based off how much we bring in. That's wrong. You don't base it off that. Like you don't base because there are churches who are bigger than Marshill, and that pastor gets paid way less than $600. So the premise of us basing it off of our company is this big, so let's give the pastor this much is totally wrong.
Go ahead. First, you're about to break something down.
Yeah. So first, it's a nonprofit. It's not a company. It's a nonprofit organization. And two, I mean, I get this part. That's why my relationship with money is a little weird because I hate money. But it's like, do I really need that much? Like, I don't need that much to like do stuff that I got to do. You know what I'm saying? Especially when I have other stuff going on. Like Mark was a popular speaker. He had wrote books.
He got
right?
books. He got books,
a lot of stuff.
He got books.
So like
even Trump had 600,000. I'm sure.
Right. So he doesn't need that salary.
Yeah, that's outside.
He doesn't need $600,000 a year just base salary from the church.
Hold on, wait. Can we wait? This 600,000 was not including the books and the speaking engagement.
No, that's his base salary in the church.
Like, yeah. No, okay.
So then I'm thinking too. Okay. And then I'm thinking like this too. So even that example, I've seen that example from my pastor from back home, Bishop Courtney Macbeth. He don't even get his salary from the church. He was like, "Yo, y'all can keep the salary. I don't even want it."
That's what T.D. Jakes did. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because these pastors get it. Like, yo, that's a lot of money.
Because I could go and I could make my joint off of these books.
And that's how you're supposed to do it.
Engagement.
Paul was
I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes, you are.
I believe that once you get to a certain level,
nope.
Maybe.
I totally believe.
So you're saying from the jump, or you're saying once you get to a certain level? Macbeth,
correct. Like once you're able to sustain yourself.
Once you're able to sustain yourself. Okay.
So you got the dude from Saddleback Church, Rick Warren. He paid back his church the salary he had for 15 years after he wrote that book, Purpose Driven Life.
Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah. But listen.
So there's so many examples of people and pastors who realize I don't need this money. Let's get back to the church.
Okay, so here's my thing about that. Yeah, I'm with Tiger. He put, it's not necessarily what you're supposed to do, but it's an awesome way to do things if you can. I agree. I look at Macbeth and I look at Jakes, and those are the two people we used. Yeah. We know, me and you know, that they have been doing church for 35, 40 years.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Whereas Driscoll, this church started in 99 or 2006. What was it around?
Like 99.
99, and then it closed in 2014. 14. Okay, so we're talking about less than a 15-year-old church versus people who've been doing church for 35, 40 years.
No, it don't matter, quote. That don't matter because Driscoll had mainstream success almost immediately. Macbeth and Jakes didn't have mainstream success immediately. Right. It took them 20 years. Yeah. So once he got that mainstream success, why do I need this salary? I'm making $1 million off these books that the church bought.
That the church bought.
I'm getting paid $20,000 to speak per engagement. You know what I'm saying?
You got a very good point. The only other point I'll throw into that is, of course, we are basing that off of you, Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Beach, Virginia, right now, Atlanta, Georgia, and of course, we're looking at Indiana for Bree versus the West Coast, Seattle.
It don't matter.
It is a different bracket.
He makes
cost of living is higher out there.
Is it a $600,000 bracket?
I broke it down. I already broke. We had a whole fake meeting about it at church the other day.
Okay.
So
whole fake meeting.
Yeah, we all got into a conversation about this at church the other day.
Yeah.
We broke it down. I think it was like 600,000 in Seattle is equivalent to 120,000 in Richmond. Maybe $120,000 a year in Richmond. Like that was the difference, right? So still, if you're 600, if you're 120 is just off your salary, you know how much money you get from books? Oh my gosh! If you have a New York Times bestseller, that is getting bread. Quote: He has money. He doesn't even need to make a salary from the church.
I'm not saying that he doesn't have money. I'm not saying that 600,000 isn't a lot.
What are you saying?
I'm saying I'm not quite. I don't think there's a black and white line to it. That's my thought process with it. I just don't see there being a black and white line to it.
It's just interesting that he like.
Yeah, I'm I don't know. I still think it's weird counting somebody else's pockets and telling them they get paid too much. I kind of feel the same way in a sense.
I think
it was weird to me. It's just weird because as a pastor, and it's a nonprofit. I think that's what makes it so weird to me. Like I could see if he was like a coach, like a consulting firm or something like that.
Right,
like
you're a pastor.
Like that. It's just I'm struggling to understand how he earned $600,000.
Well, listen, you're a pastor of how many people though? How many people were at this church?
12,000
people. That's a lot of funerals, a lot of weddings, a lot of hospital visits. Hopefully.
He's not doing all those. He's not doing that.
The elders are probably handling most of that. But I mean, listen, man, I hear what y'all are saying. Even as Tiger just said, the average home in San Diego right now is $500,000. That's average.
That's not Seattle.
That's Cali. We talking about Seattle though. We talking about Seattle. It's West Coast.
It's still more than what we have, where we all are at. Well, the four of us are. You know what I mean? As far as living expense.
That's two different places. Now I know Seattle. Yeah. I'm not saying it's cheap by any means, but I feel like, is it the same though? Is it literally the same in Seattle from San Diego? Like, is it the same?
Yeah.
Even if it is, those books and those speaking engagements, like 600.
How much is Joel Osteen getting right now? How much is Joel Osteen getting in Texas right now? I'm messing. That's crazy. That's a whole nother situation.
He probably get more than that. He's probably getting way more than that.
Come on.
Church is huge, bruh. So yeah, I thought the money part, when they broke down the financials in the last episode, and they were like, when the church closed, you got $20 million that you brought in that year alone. So what are we doing with that? And then they talked about how the different campuses kind of merged, and some of them paid off the leases of their buildings. And then why everybody got fired had to sign an NDA. Like why was it so hostile when you got fired?
Did everybody that got fired have to do an NDA?
It seemed like it.
I remember one person. It seemed like that.
Nah, it was like 4 quotes.
Okay.
It was like 4 people.
Yeah.
And watching that, it was crazy. I feel like the manner of how they let people go.
It's crazy. Yeah. But I've seen it before, and it's so toxic. Oh, it's so toxic. But Lord knows I've seen it before.
Yeah. 100%.
I ain't seen people get fired, but I've seen people leave because they was not feeling the decisions. Yeah. But
listen. We definitely need to be wrapping this up probably in the next maybe 5-10 minutes, 10-20 minutes.
I got mad more stuff to talk about.
Wait, can we talk about? I'm sorry.
We can do a part 2.
No.
Yeah, no, we do need to do a part 2. But so my main the things we do to women, that whole episode situation, I feel like we need to break that thing down. And I know we don't have to. I feel like
we could do what we want to do on these YouTube streets. What do you want to go ahead and break that down? Because that's a whole conversation. Let's do it.
That's so much. I think initially as I was listening to it, I was like, no, I don't see a whole lot wrong with this, right? At first, initially, when they was first talking about it, but then when he said you're in sin if you're not giving your husband fellatio, and I'm like,
Hold on.
no.
Did he specifically say that?
Was it? I thought that he said if you're not giving
anybody else. I know there was a pressure for a wife to basically do anything that the husband was into, therefore to keep the husband from being tempted elsewhere, which is some bull, right?
That's the part. See, and it's like, yes, I feel like the parts that were good was like, okay, yes, like you should be intentional, being intimate with your spouse, yes, but it was all on the woman. That was everything was on the woman to do anything the man wanted, whenever, however, like what? Like what are we saying? And then
smack it up, flip it, rub it down. Oh no, I'm sorry.
To tell this woman she's in sin if she doesn't do that is like, bruh, that you don't know the damage that can do for a woman, especially a woman who has experienced sexual abuse, any kind of sexual violation. You're telling this woman that she is straight up in sin.
Right.
Straight up in sin if she doesn't do these things.
Yeah. And that's foul. I mean, from people. There are people in this world who, when they have intercourse, it hurts them. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of different things that have to be accounted for when this kind of stuff is coming across the pulpit. So that was definitely some bull. The things we do to women. That's just.
But how do we feel? But how do we feel about as far as the traditional roles that he explained? As far as like, men, you work, your wife's not supposed to work, and if your wife works, then you ain't doing it right. Like, okay. I wasn't mad at that because I kind of low key feel like that too. Like, I feel like, my job is to go get the bacon, and your job is to have a choice if you want to work or not. And if I'm not providing enough, then that's on me. I need to do better. But again, I was raised like that, and I was raised more traditional than these 2021 girls out here.
Yeah, it's 2021 out in these streets. Roles have honestly. Roles is just different out there.
But I don't see why women would complain. Like we're setting up a life for you.
No, most women, and of course this is the double-sided coin. When he said that stuff, a lot of the ladies were like, yeah. But then he said, well, you need to, please him in any kind of way when it comes to the bedroom. They were like, oh, I don't know about that, or that might be hard to fit in. So it is a little bit of a double, a two-edged sword, maybe a double-sided coin, or whatever analogy or phrase.
Yeah, but I don't agree with the pleasing part or whatnot, but I do agree with my part that puts the responsibility on me. So, like, I wasn't mad at that part. And, like, just because he says it doesn't mean you have to do it. You feel what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
I guess what Trish is saying is like, he said it was a sin. I'm trying to remember.
He said you're in sin if you're not pleasing your man.
What if your husband doesn't like that? But what if your husband
No.
What if he's just super chill?
No. I'm just saying the thing was whatever he wants in the bedroom was the thing.
Right, but I'm saying, what if your husband is super conservative? Like, I really don't want that much. We have sex, that's fine.
We don't know what would happen with that type of situation. However, all we know is what he said to the woman. So
yeah, but he's assuming that these women or that these husbands want like a freak jump, like
that is. I mean, that could be what he was assuming. Maybe not.
Train the men of his church. That's the mindset that they were starting to adopt.
Oh,
even one woman said, "My husband's starting to act like that's what happens. That's what happened." So I think that maybe if that was like pushing you, like like I'm telling the women to do whatever they want you to do, then maybe they start to think, oh, maybe I should want more. Who knows? Either way, it's bad. Either way, it's just bad. But I was very not okay with him saying, if your wife is not at home making babies, and if she's working outside of the home, then y'all, like, did he say that the man was in sin?
No, he didn't say he was in sin, but it's just really kind of you're not handling your business.
In leadership. Yeah, or they couldn't be in leadership or something like that.
Oh, right.
Something
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah, what works for your marriage don't necessarily work for my marriage, and yada yada yada, and those kind of things have to be discussed and different things of that nature. So, I mean, he was definitely incorrect in how he probably addressed that. But also the question, because, I mean, did he address it like that in the 90s? Did he address it like that in the early 2000s? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's a different time too.
Yeah.
Now than there as well. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I drop the stats all the time right now, especially with Black women. Shoot, Black women running things right now. When it comes to graduating from college, the number one, home ownership, I believe they are on the rise right now. I mean, they're all above Black men right now so entrepreneurship, boom, boom, boom. So, yeah, it was definitely some interesting joints there. Anything else right off that stood off? Any other questions anybody else had?
No.
I think we literally answered every question that I had on my list. And I didn't even ask all the questions. Like, some of y'all asked the questions that I was thinking about. So that's what it is. I think y'all feel like y'all wrapped. So that's what it is. Listen. Our goal wasn't to necessarily focus too much on Marshill, but what we can learn from Marshill and what we can learn from the documentary, and was the documentary necessary, and can we learn from it, and how do we go forward with church and dealing with church and because, I mean, church is the best thing for a Christian, in my opinion. But I know a lot of people don't do church anymore. That is the culture we are living in now, where Christians are starting not to go to church. There's a lot of people who have not returned to church from COVID. And, and it's not on some cautious joint. It's on, I remember even typing this on Facebook when COVID popped off. I was like, yo, I've been in church. I've been saved my whole life. All of a sudden, I just found out about this day called Sunday, where I don't have to do nothing. This is, and it was kind of dope, you know what I mean, to an extent. But we just don't want to forsake going to church. There's so much growth for the believer in church. You know what I mean?
You're in a healthy church,
Yeah, healthy church. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think there can be a little bit of growth for a church, for a believer in a non-healthy church, if that situation is then resolved correctly. You know what I mean, or processed correctly, or worked through. You know what I mean? Everything is a lesson. Everything is a learn. Everything is an opportunity for growth. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. That's not to excuse toxicity or anything like that. Like I said, nothing we've said today is trying to excuse Driscoll as a whole, or the things that Driscoll did, or certain things as a whole. Nothing like that. Nor is it trying to minimize the pain of some of these people. But we do want to make sure that people with their eyes wide open see what things are, and see, the red flags that are in front of them, and know that, listen, you are not to put a man or a woman on a pedestal. You are not to idolize them. You are not to worship them. There is only one that's deserving of your worship. And so that's what it is. That's what it is.
I think we should take this conversation to Clubhouse at some point. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay. You know how that is. You're gonna have to run with that. You're gonna have to let me know. You're gonna have to lead that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I did. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Clubhouse is still a thing? That's still popping?
Oh, it's coming back. Like, people are doing their thing on Clubhouse right now.
Word.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. Yo, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Tastemakers Pod. Of course, If you're still here, make sure to like and subscribe. Shouts out to everybody on the replay game that's going to catch the replay on this. Make sure to like and subscribe. Really, like you can do it right now. You can hit like, you can hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, and we would be most appreciative, no doubt. Also, feel free to share this. Let people know what we got going on here at the Tastemakers Pod. We kind of call it the Grown Christian Hip Hop Show, or the Grown Christian Show, where we talk about CHH, culture, hip hop, the whole nine. And that's what we do. And we will see you guys next week again. That's Trisha Bell right there. It's my man, Light Skin Corey. Got Brina right there.
I'm getting big, Trish. I'm getting big, Trish. Look at these light skin muscles.
We appreciate you guys tuning in to the Tastemakers Pod. We'll see you next week.
Peace.